And we are on, my man. Angelo, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Eternal Raider 72 channel. I've been promoting it to
That's right.
everybody. Cam Jack promoted it last night while he was promoting the Black Hole. So yeah, no, man, and I know it's exciting. You know I've been bothering you about it for so long, man, because we talk damn near every day.
Yeah, we do. Look, a lot of people have been hitting me up like, man, you need to go ahead and get a show going. And, so I got to get the people what they want. I'm happy about it. Thank you for always being in my corner. And we're going to have a lot of fun, man. Appreciate you too, Captain Jack, for the shout out. We're going to have a lot of fun, y'all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And tonight, I know you and I were just watching the Knicks Pacers game. That was insane. But I mean, that's your shit. Like you really know your basketball. So overall, I told you like I was gonna pay attention as long as my Warriors were in, and as soon as they were out, I was like, man. When Steph got hurt, I was done. I was like, it's over. So, but because you've been watching the whole thing anyways, did you predict this? Did you predict that it was going to end up kind of happening the way you're seeing it unfold?
Well, honestly, I felt the Knicks. I felt the Pacers. I just felt like the style of play that they have, the pace of play, and the depth that they have. I thought that it'd be a little bit too much for New York, especially coming off the grueling series that they had against Detroit, the emotional series that the Knicks had against Boston. So I just felt like Indiana was the fresher team. They pretty much handled Cleveland. They pretty much handled Milwaukee. Although those teams did have some injuries, I still feel like the Pacers were going to wear those teams out eventually if those series would have kept going. So I just think that Indiana is more of a team of destiny right now with their style of play, with the depth that they have, and also the coaching. So I just think the Knicks don't have enough horses in the stable when it comes time to run with the Pacers, and we saw that again tonight. And I think the Pacers actually, they did win more convincingly tonight. I think the style of play really showed up tonight, and you could just see who's the better team. This one might be headed for a gentleman's sweep.
Wow. You think the Pacers are not going to come back to New York?
No, when I say a gentleman's sweep, I think the Knicks maybe might get one game over there in Indiana. They could possibly get game 4. But I don't see them coming out of this winning more than one game at this point.
Where do you think is it that where's the weakness of the Knicks? I mean, like in all honesty, do you believe the Knicks would have gotten by Boston had Jason Tatum not gotten hurt?
Well, that's interesting because if you think about it, that game that Jason Tatum got hurt in, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was game 4. Game 4, when Jason Tatum got hurt in game 4, I thought the Knicks were on their way to winning that game anyway. They made that comeback once again, being down by 20 points. There was just something about what was going on with Boston that it didn't seem like they had the same magic that they had last year. And if you think about it, Porzingis didn't play well. And it was a lot of inconsistencies with the way their style of play that they played with against the Knicks. They shot way too many 3-point shots, and you know what they say: you live by the 3, you die by the 3, and they shoot them a lot. And so, to me, that was one of the things that I just didn't think that Boston was hitting all of the shots confidently. So I think the Knicks probably would have squeaked by them, but I felt like the Pacers would have beat the Celtics, to be honest.
Wow.
I really do. I mean, I've liked Indiana for a while now, even going back to last year. I thought they were a little inexperienced last year when they did make it to the conference finals against Boston. Halliburton got hurt, so they weren't at full strength, but they kind of showed what they were about last year. So I'm just a believer in the Pacers. I like the way they play. I like the style. I like the pace. I like the depth. I like the coaching, and I like the leadership. Halliburton gets a bad rap, but once again, you see his leadership on full display.
No, I mean, hey, I'm watching it, and barring injury, the Pacers are pretty good. If let's say this whole thing plays out the way it plays out, and finally we're going to see the Thunder make it to the finals, because unless something crazy happens, man, and Anthony Edwards all of a sudden becomes Michael Jordan of tomorrow, they're just gonna get swept. It feels like they're just gonna get swept.
Ant-Man had 32 last night, and
I know, by himself.
It didn't register. Yeah, it didn't register. It just didn't register. Right. And once again, we could flip it over with OKC, and we can also say that their style of play, their depth, their pace is wearing Minnesota down as well. And that was on display. That was actually really on display in the previous series against Denver as well. That's the best job I've ever seen a team do on Jokic. They pretty much locked the Joker up and frustrated him. By the time that Game 7 came around, he was ready to be done. He was cooked. That defense swarmed his ass the whole series, and he could never figure out where they were coming from. So you have to give those guys a lot of credit over there, Oklahoma City. This is one of the young teams that's actually breaking through, because when you watch NBA basketball, you usually have to go through your paces before you get to that elite championship level, right? We saw it a couple of years ago where Golden State took Boston out, right? They took Boston out, and Boston was a young gun team, and they had to go through that lesson. But you're watching OKC, and that's a collection of young players over there, young talent over there, but they figured it out early. They actually figured it out early, so I'm impressed with OKC. You don't usually see a young, youthful team like that do what they're doing in the NBA. So there's definitely a new guard coming into the NBA. And check this out. Everybody out there, check this out. We don't have no LeBron. We don't have no Steph. We don't have any KD. We don't have any of the old guard guys. This is all new blood NBA playoff basketball here. Even the Celtics, are gone. So we're sailing into uncharted territory when it comes to elite championship teams in the NBA right now. And I'm here for it, man. I like the youth. I like the young guns.
And we could say Eternal Raiders 72. We could say that I got to get used to it. We can say that you're a diehard. I mean, and I think that's why a lot of times there's this narrative that the NBA is rigged because they're trying to get the ratings back up, and because it is kind of down. Like, if you really think about it, if Indiana makes it to the finals and OKC makes it to the finals, those are two small market teams, right? So how many millions of people? I mean, there's going to be people that are going to watch it because of betting, because it's the NBA. But at the end of the day, there's not a Shohei Ohtani. There's not a, you know what I mean? There's not like a name that pops. Right. I saw they tried to have Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson in WWE. So that might help get a more, they were doing a little wrestling bit. So, that's some cross promotions. But at the end of the day, do you believe that any of these youngsters are Chet Holmgren, SGA, any of them? Any of them gonna grab the allure of the people that want to start watching the NBA, or are we going to be kind of in a rough ride here of diehards will watch it, but not enough fun things for casuals?
Well, I'll say this. I think that the New York Indiana series is already kind of giving you that, because New York is a big stage. Indiana plays with a certain type of style that, man, I can watch these guys, what I mean? Up tempo, fast-paced team basketball. So, it might take the fans, the casual fan, a little time to pick up on these new guys. But I think eventually the style of play is going to win over, and good basketball always wins. You know what I mean? Like, that's anything. If the product is good and they're playing the right way, then yeah, I think people will tune in. I really do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I really do. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's like watching the Knicks game. And again, I have no stake on any of these teams. So when I'm watching the Knicks Pacers game, it's because it's close or because it's competitive. But I wouldn't want to wait. I wouldn't. It's kind of like when you and I talk about boxing, sometimes if it feels like a waste of time, we're not really going to continue to watch it, right? So that's kind of like what's happening with OKC and Minnesota. Like, unless you're a diehard, like if you're a diehard, or if you're just watching the purity of how much of a talent Anthony Edwards is, then yeah, like I kind of feel like, I don't know if Minnesota is just getting it wrong, because I think Anthony Edwards could be like Jordan-ish if they gave him a Pippen, if they gave him a Horace Grant, if they gave him a Craig Hodges. You know what I'm saying?
Now you speaking my language. Now you speaking my language here. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's to me, that's the one of the reasons why the NBA was the NBA is, I mean, when I was watching it, coming from the Philippines, now, come on now. It was all about Magic Johnson. It was all about the Lakers. It was all about So we get into that, and then we were during that time. Like, I remember growing up, and I'm like, oh my God, Detroit's good. Everyone was good. Atlanta was good. Like, everybody had a star. Everyone, every single team had Spud Webb. We had Wilkins. We had so many. And then now, what I'm saying now is, where is our human highlight film? Where is our Larry Bird? Like, you know what I mean? Like, where are they?
Look, we can go on and on of, don't get me going with this, but I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally get it. Just for all you guys out there, I just want to let you guys know my basketball fandom started in 1979, Magic versus Bird, Michigan State versus Indiana State, and then it just went on from there with me all the way through the 80s. With the Lakers winning those championships, and of course my era through the 90s with Chicago Bulls. And, I think Michael Jordan is the greatest player that's ever lived. So yes, I understand where you're coming from when you say that. And yeah, we still have to let these guys develop on the big stage. Right now, we got a bunch of regular season stars, as I would say, a lot of regular season stars. But like I tell a lot of youngsters that I talk to, especially when I talk to them about the NBA is not only about your talent, but it's what you do in the moment with your talent. Right. And right now, we're still waiting for those moments. Now, we did get a glimpse of one with Halliburton the other night with the 3-point shot and the Reggie Miller choke job. By the way, everybody, I call that game the New York choke job. I'm coining that right now. That was the New York choke job. So I'm letting you guys know that right now. But we did get a glimpse of that with Halliburton. And those things need to continue, because those are indelible moments. And I tell people all the time, like, when you watch a guy when I watched a guy like Magic, when I watch Jordan, even when I watch Bird, they're indelible moments in big moments of games, the biggest moments of games, the biggest games that they made signature plays that we sit here and talk about today.
Right.
Now, we're still waiting for this. We're still waiting for this iteration, this generation of players to do that. And once we can get that breakthrough, then I think, some of these smaller market teams, the Indianas, the OKCs, the Minnesotas, they'll get a little bit more shine. There'll be a little bit more eyes put to these games. But I'm still enjoying it because I'm a purist and I love the game, and I love what I'm seeing right now from Indiana. I love what I'm seeing from OKC. Like, you guys out there that are novice basketball guys, I'll tell you this, a series between Indiana and OKC would be very entertaining because they're very similar teams.
They're
true. Similar teams.
Now that I could agree with. And I think too, again, I don't want to blame like the mainstream public too much, but if OKC Thunder was still called the Seattle Supersonics, I think that there would be more people probably watching it.
Oh, without
a
doubt.
Because the Seattle Supersonics has been around since, the 60s, 70s, you know what I'm saying? Right.
Right. No,
versus the OKC Thunder, they moved and then they started that whole franchise. And this isn't like to say anything against them. It's just that you're looking for a newer group of fans to kind of want to join in. And like Chet Holmgren, I knew about him because of my son. I remember when my son was like in the 6th, 7th grade, he would be telling me, Dad, you got to watch this guy, Chet Holmgren. He was dribbling up Steph Curry. And I was like, man, I don't want to watch no skinny kid. Like, let's see how well he does in the NBA. And now that he's in the NBA, That's how come I know about him. But that's
Yeah.
what I mean, though, is where I almost feel like the old school mainstream fans of our generation, the same mainstream fans that watch Magic, Bird, the Bad Boys of Detroit, when the Atlanta Hawks had Spud Webb, Wilkins, Willis, like New York Knicks versus Houston Rockets, like that mainstream group that know David Robinson, Akeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, like
Oh man.
now we're kind of like, we know who Karl Anthony Towns is, but
Right.
we're not in love with him the same way we were in love with Patrick Ewing, or even that New York's team that had, Oakley, Ewing. You know what I mean, right? Like
Well,
Chris.
we're talking about, we're talking about the glory days of the NBA. And one thing I always tell a lot of people as well, see, we grew up watching the stars of the NBA be stars in college as well. Right. So
Right,
we, those guys would be in school 3-4 years, and so you knew who they were before they even came out. So you could
right,
follow their career. That's why I tell people a lot of times, the college game isn't the same as well. It's not the same anymore. They
right,
don't produce the stars. I mean, Cooper Flag is an anomaly at this point,
right,
right? Like Cooper
right,
Flag feels like one of those guys. He feels like one of those guys that came out back in the 90s, and when you had a guy like Grant Hill coming out,
right.
you have all these otherworldly college players that came out. You knew who they were off the rip. Even Shaquille O'Neal stayed at LSU for 2 years.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So you kind of
Yeah.
you start talking about Alonzo Mourning and all the guys, Allen Iverson and Jason Kidd, and all of these guys that came out. So we got a chance to watch them become. We seen them from college go into the pros, and we had the expectation. Now a lot of these guys, I'll tell you what, if you're not a basketball purist, after Cooper Flag, a lot of people are going to be scratching their head as to who's going to be number 2, who's going to be number 3 in the draft.
There's going to be a couple of guys from Rutgers, I'll tell you right now.
Oh, Dylan Harper. Yeah. Dylan Harper, Ron Harper's son. I think he's probably going to go number 2. Forgive me, I forgot the other kid's name, but he's about 6'10". Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, he's
and he's going to be good. Those are the only 3 guys that people can really say, okay. And I think it's a kid from Baylor who's pretty good too. I'm sorry, everybody, if I forget these names right now. I'll get better with all that for sure. But yeah, you might be only have 4 or 5 guys that you can say, okay, I know this guy and I think his game's going to translate. Right. So we don't have, we didn't have that back then. We knew these guys coming in. We probably knew the first 15 guys that got drafted.
Right.
So it's just a different way that basketball is being presented right now. Plus you have to add on the international piece to it, because we have so many international players now that come from all over that we don't even get a chance to see until they get to the league. So I think that's kind of hurt the NBA as far as the average viewership, especially the viewerships that we had back in the day. A lot of people don't tune in like they used to because they don't know who the new incoming stars are.
Right. And I know we're going to get into the boxing part of it, but do you kind of feel like basketball is a little bit like boxing in the sense that so many more of the high-end marketed players like Wembanyama or Luka Doncic or Jokic, they're all international players, man. They're not
even
they're not American.
Giannis, SGA. I mean, and that's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like we have to wait till these guys get to the league for us to actually see what they can do.
Right. Yeah, like SGA, for example, he's from Canada.
Oh man, shout out to my brother fixing what I have. What's up? I see you in the building. See you in the building. That's right. Hey. That's fam right there. And he's right. He's absolutely right. The paid apps to watch has hurt as well. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what everything.
And that's what I was just gonna say that I just saw something where it was talking about how much we're all gonna have to pay for football. And now, and again, and part of it, and this is what I always say, Eternal Raider 72. I always say that if you're going to complain about paying for boxing pay-per-view, then you might want to look at how much money you're actually paying for the NFL. But the difference is because the NFL is such an American branded sport, you can't get away from it. And that's what boxing used to be. That's what basketball at one point, I remember, was way more popular than the NFL, man. Like during I could almost argue that during the glory days of basketball was also some of the glory American days of boxing. Like they kind of went hand in hand.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Well, you and I are old enough to remember when we could, turn on ABC on a Saturday afternoon and watch Sugar Ray Leonard or Mike Tyson boxing, right?
Right.
And it wasn't a pay-per-view. It was like, okay, we're going to turn to CBS or NBC or ABC, and we're going to be watching the best boxers, the best boxers of their time fight for free.
Right. So right. And the NBA was the same, just like fixing what I have is saying is the NBA wasn't, I had to get this channel or that channel. We were watching it on NBC, the NBA on NBC was the thing to watch, and you watch it you go after school and you're paying attention. And then also too, I'll say this, like I grew up at a time where newspapers mattered, right? I don't know if this was you too, Eternal Raider, but we would wake up, like we would pick up the paper and we would read the stats for the NBA or what happened in the NBA. And nowadays it's kind of like, like this, I think that if you're not clicking on a Instagram or whatnot, it hasn't become like, that's what I mean is we need someone like Anthony Edwards to become like a Jordan, an American Jordan, where everybody will go, oh, well, we got to support him because, that's our next great whatever.
Well, one of the problems is as well is that we need to stop trying to manufacture that, and it needs to become authentic. Right. I feel like a lot of times, some of these guys, they're pushing it on us. They're pushing these guys on us. They're pushing Anthony Edwards on us without him really being that guy. Now, don't get me wrong. His talent is otherworldly. He has great talent. But like I said before, Michael Jordan gave us those moments. He gave us those memories. And until you can do that, you're not going to really be on that stage. And now, I don't want to take away from the guys that I mentioned previously with LeBron, Durant, Steph Curry, because they have given us those moments. So I don't want to take away from those guys. But as we're kind of starting to find out and starting to see now, they become the old guard in a certain way, right? So I don't want to really count them as to what we're watching right now.
Right.
So we have to kind of juxtapose what we're seeing right now to what we know from the past. And right now, these guys still have to match that. And we're going to get some new blood in here to be able to do that. Because if you think about it, all four of these teams that are still in it right now, they haven't been to that mountaintop. They don't have any stars that's really been to that mountaintop. So now that, here's some new blood coming around. SGA, very worthy. Great leader. I love the way he leads. Like I said before, Halliburton, and you can say Jalen Brunson as well, and as well as Anthony Edwards. So, it's some guys out there that can take the mantle, but we also need classic matchups. We need classic games, classic matchups. Need a bird magic.
We need a bird magic, right?
Yes.
Like right now, as you're watching it, because you're such a purist of NBA, who would be, if you were going to hype it up for people to watch the finals, who is your bird and who is your magic? Like, what's the thing here? What's the hype?
I would say this. Okay, if we're gonna go east and west, and if you're looking for a bird, then you're gonna have to go Luka Doncic. But I would like an in shape Luka Doncic because he has that type of game. I mean, a lot of people would say Jokic, but Jokic is a post player. So, they're not as glamorous. They're not as sexy. Don't get me wrong. I love his game and everything that he does. But Luka is a perimeter player, and he can do more on the perimeter. So Luka would be that Larry Bird, in my estimation or my opinion. Luka would be that Larry Bird. And you'd have to look at a guy like an Ant Edwards, but he's in the Western Conference, right? So I say this again. Style of play, based on what you're looking at. I do like a Tyrese Halliburton. A lot of people wouldn't like me saying that, but he
No,
has
he's
a
good.
charisma. He
Yeah.
has a charisma. You know, they play a style of basketball that's easy on the eyes. So, you know, just imagine if we got a Lakers Pacers series would be nice. That would have been nice.
You know, he's got that weird little I'm trying to remember the player that he kind of reminds me of, the way
Kind of like that
Halliburton
shot put. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he got that. Yeah.
it's not like Michael. I wanted to say Michael Adams from the Nuggets back in the day,
Mm.
but not quite Michael Adams. Like, there's another person that would like. Oh, Bill Cartwright. He kind of reminds me
Woo,
of like,
man,
like Bill Cartwright, like the way he shoots the ball.
I don't know. You know what? I would probably, you know what? You're right though. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, because I do like the Michael Adams thing. Michael Adams had that push shot, but he was kind of a shorty, so he had, you know, he needed the extra leverage with that. But Cartwright. It might not be as ugly as Cartwright was. Cartwright did a full 180 before he shot the ball. I don't even know how you practice that, you know.
Right.
But he does. Halliburton does have a funny looking shot, but his game is kind of weird because he got rated. He got ranked as one of the most overrated players in the league,
Really?
and I think he did. Yeah. He got ranked as one of the most overrated players in the league. But I would say this: I think it's because he plays the game with a certain type of joy. He plays the game with a certain type of flair, and sometimes his offense is not as aesthetically pleasing to some people. It's not smooth like Anthony Edwards. It's not explosive, but he plays the game on a real cerebral level. And I told people last year that I thought that he had a little bit of Magic Johnson in him, you know, and
Okay.
not
Okay.
and just the way he plays the game, the way he sees the game, right? He's not the
way he
physical
leads
talent.
the floor, the way he leads
Exactly.
the floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not the physical talent that Magic is. Few people are a 6'9" true point guard. So we're not going to say that. But he plays the game in the vein of Magic Johnson, and I like that about him. And I think that one of the things that you're going to start finding out, especially when Indiana gets to the finals, is that it's something to be said about these Midwest teams and their fans, because it lends itself to more of a college atmosphere, right? Certain teams look good on TV, especially when they have the crowd behind them. Even New York, you can look at New York and say to yourself, "Oh man, every time I turn a New York Knicks game on, it's going to be live, whether they're winning or losing, because the crowd is going to give that to you." So sometimes, you know, sometimes players and teams, they go hand in hand with their city and how they represent their city and how their city represents them. Because I tell some of you younger guys, or you younger fans out here watching, go back and watch some of those games in the 80s in the Boston Garden, and watch how rabid those fans are when they played the Lakers in 80, in 84, 85, 87. You know, you go watch those, and you'll see what a fan base can do for a team and what it does. And sometimes you have to be there. I always say this to you. Sometimes you had to be there. I talked to some of my younger guys, and, you know, I try to tell them about the feeling that we had watching those games back in the 80s, right? And we talked about, oh man, look at how those guys are just storming the court after the game was over, and, you know, after they won championships and stuff like that, because you saw how fervent the fan base was for that rivalry, for those players. And we get that today with these Midwest, you know, some of these smaller market teams. That what they lack in visibility as far as bigger markets, they make up for with their fandom.
Right. And you know what? Like you said, I think that if you're listening to this on a replay, if you're listening to us right now live, you're kind of understanding that where Eternal Raiders coming from is the game of basketball is fun to watch, but because there's so many things out right now, it's kind of like competition. But if you can actually sit in and we can have these stars start to come out, then we could have that era. Because I think of, like, when I think of Indiana, right? Like, even right now, I'm seeing it. I'm starting to kind of get on board with them. Like, all right, you guys beat the Knicks twice. But in all honesty, it's like they're not beating a Knicks team that had Patrick Ewing, Oakley. You know what I mean? Like, Karl Anthony Towns is good, but he's not Patrick Ewing good. Not to me. He's all right.
No.
but he's not like he can't take over, right? So it feels like like now the Pacers should beat them. But with watching the Pacers, when I think of the Pacers, I think of Detlef Schrempf and Dale
Oh
Ellis,
wow.
and you know
Yeah,
what I
Reggie
mean?
Miller, and yeah,
Reggie
exactly.
Miller, like I'm trying to go back to them Mark Jackson,
Right.
Pacer, like that. That's what I'm talking
But
about. Is
I will say this. Look, and for my listeners out here, my YouTubers, my Eternals, I want you guys to know. Yes, I am kind of a homer. I am from Gary, Indiana, so I do have an affinity for Indiana. I have an affinity for things that I and D. So I just want to let the public know I am from Indiana, so they do have a little piece. But you're right. But I will say this about this. I'll say this about this current Pacer team. They are definitely worthy. They are definitely worthy, even to be mentioned with those Pacers back in the '90s. I think this team is put together
yeah,
well
no,
and is coached well.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think Rick Carlisle's doing an amazing job. I'm forgetting the lady's name that's also coaching, but she's doing a
Yeah,
really good
she's getting
job.
down. She's getting down
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and I like this team with Miles Turner and Naismith, and I
Naismith, yeah,
understand
Nimhard, and
I
yeah, Siakam,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and yeah, Pascal Siakam goes all the way back to when the Warriors when we played Toronto. I
Toronto,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's not that they don't have a good team, and it's not. It just I just feel like the NBA needs to do something to kind of like I don't know, like do an imagery to remind some of the old school fans that hey, remember when you used to watch Reggie Miller and Dale Ellis? Like that way, people could be reminded. And that's what I was telling you is as good as the OKC Thunder are, they're an original team, so there's nothing to pull from. But if their
Right.
name was Seattle Supersonics, then everybody would remember. Like they would go, "Oh, it's the Sonics against the Pacers." You know what I
Oh, and
mean?
look, I got to give another shout out. What's up, Cuzzo? I see you down there. He says the Pacers have earned my respect this playoff season. Yes,
Yeah,
they
Michael.
have. I've been big up in the Pacers. Like I said, I've been big up in the Pacers. I've kind of seen them coming, and they started out slowly this year. Halliburton was hurt, but these guys, like I said, they play a style of basketball that's on par with what Oklahoma City does. Now, I think Oklahoma City might be a little bit better defensively,
Yeah.
but pace and just kind of pound for pound playing the game the right way. I think the Pacers are right there as well. So I'm kind of looking forward to an OKC Indiana matchup. I wouldn't mind that because I'm a basketball purist. I know some of you guys out there are basketball purists as well, and I would not mind that series as well because you're going to get two deep teams that are well coached, and
And that are
they
young,
have real
that are
stars.
young, and that are young,
Yes,
and that
yes,
are young, right?
yes,
Because
no doubt,
that's the other thing
no
too
doubt.
is I think that the youth is important for it. I'd love to see. I would love to see the Thunder versus the Pacers go 7 games, and every single game be
Yeah,
exciting, so
yeah,
that NBA could market it as, "Hey, look how good it was. Look how good these new stars are. We're
yep,
only getting better. We're only getting younger. We're gonna have the draft coming out, because they need to push it. That's the
yeah.
problem. Is they keep pushing like controversial narratives rather than just give us good basketball and then we'll pay attention. If you give us just
Well,
good basketball, we'll pay attention.
Well, you know what? I'll say this honestly. We're in the middle of a transition right now, and we're seeing that. We're seeing a transition in real time. There is no LeBron in the finals. There's no Steph Curry. There's no Kevin Durant. There's no old guard in these playoffs, so to speak. So we're in a transition period. And when you're in a transition period, that means that you're going to have to give your fans a little bit of time to understand what they're watching now as far as this new blood coming in.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm with you, Cuzzo. I can see OKC in 7 right now, too. Right now, OKC, they're the favorite to me just because their defense. Their defense has been unbelievable, and I'm a defensive guy. Oh man, Severe, what's up? Salute, my man.
Severe. Oh man, thank you.
What's up? Hey, we
That's
go.
our guy
I
right
definitely
there.
get Severe. I definitely got to have you on, my man. I definitely got to have Severe on when we get to that Raider talk.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And you know what, Severe, to be fair to him, Papa Rundown, Severe is also really good at just talking. He can talk NBA. He can talk
Okay.
boxing. The problem with Severe, if you and I start talking to Severe about boxing, is he's going to disagree with you and me on a lot of shit. But that's all right. I like it. I like it.
Look. Is he a Floyd Mayweather guy? He's a Floyd Mayweather guy, ain't he?
No. Severe's like a Devin Haney guy. He's a Floyd Mayweather guy. Severe's makes good points. But yeah, we're gonna get to the boxing part in a second, Severe. We are talking NBA right now, and
stock down on Devin Haney now. Stock down on Devin Haney. Stock down on Devin Haney for sure right now.
Right. So Severe is saying OKC's beating everyone in 6 or less. So this is where I would disagree. Severe, we were just talking about how the Pacers are doing so well, and Eternal Raiders kind of breaking down how good their team is, and we're kind of comparing it to the Detlef Schrempf and the Dale Ellis and Mark Jackson Pacers team. So that OKC versus Pacers team could end up being one of them good ones. Would you say that OKC is only as good as SGA could bring them, or can Chet Holmgren really carry him?
Chet ain't there yet. Chet's going to be a great player. He's still figuring it out. He needs to still work on his physicality. He's not there yet. Right now OKC goes as SGA goes. So and that's real. OKC only goes as far as SGA takes him.
Let me ask you this too. When you're even thinking about the marketing side of it, would you say that the OKC Thunder's kind of mainstream base or fan base of sorts, are they bigger or smaller than the Timberwolves?
I would say that they might be comparable, but I might give OKC just a little bit more of an edge because remember, they don't have an NFL team. They don't have a baseball team. Minnesota has both of those. So OKC, you're getting that down home, grassroots support, that you only get from teams that don't really have any other pro sports around them. They're dependent on the Oklahoma State, Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma's women's softball is really good, stuff like that. So they don't really have a lot of great pro. This is all they hang their hat on, and you can see that. You can see that when you watch the games.
And again, to be fair to the Thunder, like they do have that college kind of feel when it comes to their fan base, and they do come from, if we're going to just talk OKC Thunder history, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant,
KD,
you know what I mean? Like they have a good
James
history.
Harden,
like
James Harden,
they have a good history.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Now, Severe, I get it. Severe, I get it. Yes, SGA, Chet, and Jalen all can go for 30 at any time, but if you take SGA out of there, that's a different story. Because it's the way that you get that 30. It's not always you getting 30. It's how you get that 30. SGA gets that 30 different than all them other dudes, right?
Yeah, and
so you got to always go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Michael Bonner says, if they'll good as long as SGA stays healthy is what he put. Michael Bonner put that on the comment.
No doubt. Because if SGA goes down, everything changes. I think we all know that. They can't. I mean, Chet and Jalen can't carry both of those. They can't carry that squad. They couldn't even carry that squad together to win a championship. They need SGA for sure.
Yeah, no, and that's like, would you say the same then if we're talking to about the Pacers? Like right now, it looks really bleak for the Knicks, right? It looks bad. And for as talented as the Knicks are, they, like when I see the Knicks and I'm seeing Brunson and like I don't know what it is. Like, remember I was telling you that I respect Karl Anthony Towns for the game that he has. I remember how good he was in college, but he doesn't feel to me like a Patrick Ewing. He doesn't feel to me like like a guy who will take over and say, put it on my back and I'll get us back up to 2-2. You know what I mean?
But Transplant, I'm gonna say this, right? Two different styles of basketball, period, in the player and in the era, right? I mean, Patrick Ewing was strictly a post-up player. He didn't shoot three-pointers. He didn't do, this is just a whole different era of basketball than what we grew up watching, right? We
Right.
played the game inside out. They play the game outside in now, right? So you
Right.
know, like in my day, if you had a 7-footer shooting threes, that dude's gonna be on the bench. Like he
Well,
ain't even
hold on now, not Jack Sigma, right? Jack
every
Sigma.
once in look. Every once in a while, Jack Sigma would get out there and shoot a 3 or 2. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I mean,
Right.
look, coach was still gonna be like, no, you get your ass down there in the post. Damn it, you 6'11", 7 foot, you get your ass down there and get the posting up. You know what
No,
I mean?
that's true.
So, and I'll
That's
be
true.
honest with you, I miss that basketball. You know, I miss watching a big man go to work in the post and Akeem Olajuwon, a
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You miss that.
Yeah.
You know,
David
because
Robinson. Yeah.
yeah, David Robinson and all those guys that played, you know, so you know, shout out to that era, man, because that is, like I said, that is my era. That will forever be my era. You know what I mean? That's the foundation of NBA basketball.
Yeah.
They just do it a little different now, but that's the foundation of NBA basketball for all you youngsters out there that think it all started with LeBron and Steph and all those guys. No, it did not.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And it's not to say that people like Chet Holmgren isn't someone that could become awesome, right? But like I told you,
Yeah.
I've heard about Chet since my kid. And even still now, I'm waiting to see him take over. I'm waiting for
like
Chet to become Chet Holmgren the way.
Well, Chet has to, first of all, even in today's game, which is kind of paper soft, although they're trying to do some things with the physicality in the playoffs, but it's still kind of paper soft. You know, Chet still needs to get more physical. Even in this soft era of basketball, Chet still needs to work on his physicality. So you won't be the best. You won't see the best of Chet until Chet puts on another 20 pounds.
Right. Right.
Chet's got to put on 20 to 25 pounds for him to max out what he can really do, because he's Kevin Durant light. Don't get me wrong. He's a Kevin Durant light. He's not nearly the shooter that Kevin Durant is. So I'm gonna let you guys know who all in the chat. Don't come after me. He's not nearly the shooter that Kevin Durant is, but he has Kevin Durant-esque skills for a guy his size.
Yeah,
we'll see that.
That's fair.
But he needs to put on. He's got to put on weight for him to really kind of maximize who he can be.
Right. Right. And again, this is why when we started this, we were saying that if you love basketball and if you're a purist and you like watching it, the finals will be fun to watch. But in terms of a mainstream casual base, do they really know who Chet Holmgren and SGA and Jalen are? Do they really know?
But we have to be fair to these guys, because they're just now getting their turn on the stage. They're just now getting their turn on the stage, right? So we have to allow these guys to have time to spread their wings, play basketball, and learn the game at a high level in a high stakes situation. Like I said, these are regular season stars right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me see. Hold up. I got you. Hold on, Cuzzo. But let me start with Severe. Severe says they don't need that from him. He's third in the pecking order. He's a rim deterrent. He can score. His wingspan obstructs passing lanes. Without a doubt. And guess what? Those are all the markings of a good role player right now. But the subject, what Transplant was saying was, is he going to emerge to be that guy, that second tier type guy? Because really, his talent, his talent, his size, all of that really equates to him eventually being number 2 behind SGA, right? I like Jalen Williams' game, but Chet has more physical traits and abilities and things that he could, adhere to. So, I get it right now, and that's exactly where he is right now, Severe. That's where he is right now, but I'm projecting in the future he needs to put on 20 to 25 pounds for him to maximize the guy that he can be. And they can win it now. I'm not saying they can't win it now with him being the way he is, because they definitely can. But if we're talking about him being the type of player that Transplant's talking about, there's got to be more physicality that comes with that, with him, for him to be who he is. And also, Cuzzo, Mike Bonner, my cousin, that's my cousin for all you guys out there. He says Cat is Hakeem Ewing in the post, but he just want to jack up threes. I'll trade him as well if I was the owner of the Wolves. Okay, look, I'll say this. First of all, I gotta push back on you on that one, Cuzzo. No, he is not Patrick Ewing in the post, and he is not Hakeem Olajuwon in the post on any day. On
He's
his
definitely not Hakeem Olajuwon.
no, yeah. We can't even blaspheme putting Hakeem Olajuwon in there.
That's just blasphemy, Mike.
No, yeah, we can't do that at all. No, he's nowhere near them guys when it comes to posting up. You know, he doesn't have the base for it. He doesn't have the lower body strength for him to be those kind of players. Cat gets pushed around and he's on the ground more than anybody. Look, Cat's on the ground more than the goddamn breakdancer in the Olympics. So I'm telling you now, you know what I mean? He's not that kind of guy. Now, can he get in there against smaller guys and make some plays every once in a while? Yes, but he doesn't have the base for him. He doesn't have the base for him to be one of those guys. He's not one of those guys.
Yeah, no, and again, like it's hard, and this is what we were talking about in the first like 15 minutes when we started the show. Is it's so hard for mainstream people to get involved in NBA play right now because there's such a high benchmark for how great is Michael Jordan when Eternal Raider says he's the greatest ever, right? Just think about this. Hakeem Olajuwon was amazing. And it took Michael Jordan to retire for Hakeem and Patrick Ewing to get their shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Hakeem Olajuwon is amazing. Can you think of a modern day center that can play the way Hakeem plays like right now? Not Wembanyama, not Victor Wembanyama, not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the way Hakeem plays.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? I'll give you a name. And he's really not a center. Giannis.
Okay.
Giannis.
Okay.
Giannis might be the closest that we could say to a Hakeem Olajuwon as far as, you know, being able to do some things with his back to the basket, you know what I mean? And certain footwork and all that stuff. Yeah.
Giannis. No, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. So I would definitely say that, but it's not too many guys because post basketball is not being taught anymore. We're not teaching post basketball anymore. We're not teaching inside basketball anymore. Oh my God, boom. Real quick, I'm looking at comments right now. You know, this is my first time, you know, hitting comments, so I'm trying to hit everybody. So you know, another special partner of mine, Boom Beats, he's on. He just threw a comment out there. There's a difference between a tall man and a big man. Cat is a tall man. Ewing was a big man. Beautiful. Look, I couldn't have said it no better. Better.
And Severe says Jalen Williams is number 2. I think Chet can do it, but this is a wing-dependent league. So Jalen and SGA fit the mold of what Boston did last year. Strong defenders that can get buckets. That's the recipe. And you know what? To be fair to Severe, that's true with what Boston did. But again, man, how long did that last?
Exactly. Because you know what? Because you know what? Like a lot of teams like Boston, they've actually shunned post play. They don't look post play to them is like a bad word. You know what I mean? Like they don't even want to see nobody posting up. You know, and so guess what? When you, like I said before, when you live by the 3, you're gonna die by the 3. And they chose to say, you know what? We're gonna base all the way we play on the 3-point shot. And I don't give a damn how skilled you are as a shooter. You know what I mean? Everybody's not Steph Curry. Everybody's not Klay Thompson in his prime. So, yeah, you can depend on the 3, and guys are making the 3 way more than ever now. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you have to be able to throw the ball in the post and get some baskets. Because guess what? If you watch a Boston game, they'll get a rebound, and they're under the basket and throw the shit out for a 3-pointer. I mean, look, I ain't even got that much hair left. I'll be honest, I ain't got that much hair left. And every time I see him do that shit, I want to pull what I got in my head. What I got, I want to pull the shit out. They don't even want to attempt to shoot the ball in the post. So, right. You know, and that's why Boston is where they are right now. But, you know, like going back to what Boom Beat said, there's a difference between a tall man. Let's say this. There's a difference between a tall man that can shoot and a big man. Right. And we got a lot of tall men, tall guys that can shoot the basketball. Right. And Wemby, all these guys, we got a lot of tall guys. But when you play as a big man is Shaq. A big man is Olajuwon. A big man is David Robinson,
Robinson,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. All those
Yep.
guys are big men. And sometimes I hate to say that my
Moses
younger
Malone was
demographic.
a big man.
Oh man, all praises due to them. Hey, look, 444. A lot of y'all don't know what that is, but yeah, all praises due to the 444 Moses Malone. That was one of my favorites. Best rebounder of all time, in my opinion. You know,
Wow,
so,
hold on now. Don't get me going on Dennis Rodman. Hold on. Time out. Time out. You're killing me.
We can do this all night, bro. But you know why I say Moses? I'll tell you why I say Moses. I say Moses because Moses was one of those guys that he missed that shit and he gets it right off the rim and he's putting it right. Like Rodman would get rebounds. And don't get me wrong, I love Dennis Rodman, but Moses would get that shit 2-3 times and then score.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
Moses, hey,
True.
Listen, for the youngsters, you know, the youngsters out there, just, you know, that's why we have the power of YouTube now. Go ahead and type in 1983 Philadelphia 76ers and go ahead and watch Moses Malone and get back to me. That's all I got to say.
That team was cold, man. That team was cold.
Come on, man. For me, and like I said, the Bulls was my squad. Jordan was my squad. But for 1 year in the NBA, the best team that I ever saw for 1 year was the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers. And I dare anybody to prove me wrong.
Right.
I did. Right. They lost one game in the playoffs that year. They lost one game to Milwaukee, and they swept the Lakers. So I'm telling you right now, if y'all want to go back and do your history, go check that out. 1983 Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, no, and
Angelo, hold it down for 1 second. Let me go grab something real quick.
Yeah, no problem. No, and again, guys, we want to thank you guys for joining us. Eternal Raider 72, Brad, he's starting out his channel. This is his first episode. And him and we talk on a daily basis about, you know, boxing mostly. And then, you know, we're kind of talking basketball tonight. But it's just, we kind of want to attract, you know, the crowds that want to talk this and just to see where it's all at. Like the NBA right now, it is, if you're a purist and you like watching basketball, it is fun to watch for sure. But earlier we were talking about how it's so hard why the casual fans aren't really involved in it right now, because it's hard to kind of want to get involved when you don't quite know who your next superstars really are going to be. So we're kind of in that changing of the guard. And then on the format tonight, and I know we've been talking basketball for almost an hour now, we were gonna switch it over to boxing also, because there's a lot of big fights coming up. And yeah, me and Eternal Raider 72, Brad, to you guys who know him, we talk boxing just every day. I would say every day we're always talking about how, hey, did you know that on this day so-and-so fought so-and-so and whatnot. So hopefully you guys enjoy that conversation also. So if Severe's still on the chat or still listening to us, I know he might like the conversation. He might not agree with the conversation, but he might like some of it. So, but chat, please, if you could do us a favor and press the like buttons, share and subscribe on Eternal Raider 72. And also, if you can continue to comment, that helps us out, just so that we can see who's here, who's engaging. If you guys have any questions, the knowledge on Brad when it comes to old school basketball and boxing, it's really fun to have. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that. In terms of just going into the finals, like I was telling them, you know, it would be fun to see a 7-game Oklahoma Thunder versus Pacers match, and I hope the NBA kind of props it up so that it becomes a mainstream thing. So, and he's back, and he is back, that, ladies and gentlemen. So okay, yeah,
look. This was a good NBA, you know, discussion. We want to talk about the NBA a little bit, you know, keep everyone abreast of the playoffs. We're going to be having a lot more topics, a lot more guests. You know, we welcome everybody's comments. We love it. We love everybody that's come on already and spoke their mind. This is what this channel, this is what this forum is going to be about. And we're going to have a lot of different topics. Him and I are Raider fans, so we're going to be talking a lot of football as well. You see, he already got his Raider hat on over there. You know, I don't even know why I'm in this blue today, but yeah, I'm a Raider. Trust me, everybody knows that.
It's the Pacers, or it's not even the right blue though. But yeah,
look, it's OKC blue, and I'm not even an OKC guy. I'm in OKC blue, but it is what it is tonight, man. But yeah, we definitely big time Raider fans. So we're gonna be talking a lot of football. But you know, without further ado, I'm gonna let you guys know that my man right here is a real boxing aficionado, a true savant when it comes to boxing. This man, you know, I'll just be totally honest with you. I get texts at 6 in the morning about 6 a.m. about fights that are coming on and who's going to be fighting. And, you know, I get it all from this man right here when it comes to pugilism. And that's one of my favorites. You know, that's one of my favorite sports of all time. And I want to get into a little bit of that. You know, I want to talk about a few of the mainstream fights that's coming up. You know, if I leave it to Transplant will start telling you about everybody across the whole globe. So tonight,
and you know what, we're gonna. I promised Eternal Raider that we'll keep it to the names that you guys might be familiar with. But just like our NBA conversation, would you then agree that maybe the reason why, even though you and I are watching, for example, the fights this Saturday, right?
Right.
There's fights tomorrow, and it's
Josh
huge.
Taylor on the zone. Yeah.
It's huge. Josh Taylor, Asao Usman, but Moses Atama, who is the next coming.
I did not know Moses Atama was on that card.
He's the main attraction, baby.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah, he's the co-main.
But hey, we talked about Moses Malone. Yeah, we better mention Moses Atama as well because he's a heavyweight that a lot of guys are going to be. A lot of you boxing guys out there, people that like boxing, he's a heavyweight that you're definitely going to want to be checking out because he will be part of that championship scene sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the big highlight you guys want to do, if you want to, you could follow me at Reyes Boxing on Instagram, and I could send you stuff on this kid. You could follow Eternal Raider 72, or if you know him, text him. He'll tell you about it. But if you love Mike Tyson, if you love that Mike Tyson made
one-hitter quitter
scared of him, right?
Yeah.
They were scared to get in there. And you love that when Mike was doing it, he was between the ages of 16 and 20. Then this kid, Moses Atama, who just turned 20, he's 20 years old now. They were trying to get him to become the youngest, but obviously right now that wasn't feasible for his career. But this kid is one-hitter quitter, will get in a ring. And you know what I don't like too is everybody thinks that heavyweights just jump in a ring and throw a punch. This kid is like Tyson. He sets it up. He sets it up and then he knocks him out, right?
No doubt. Now, Transplant, let them know where Thomas from. You know, let them know where he's from. So he's from.
Yeah. So Moses Atama is he trains in Scotland, and he's based in the UK. He didn't have much of an amateur career, kind of similar to Mike Tyson in the sense that when he was doing amateurs and the way things work in the UK with amateur boxing is they try to build you up. But this kid was just different. Like he was sparring pros when he was 15, you know, like he's kind of like how Anthony Joshua was being brought up. But in all honesty, this kid might become even greater than Anthony Joshua. Because Joshua, what was cool about him is that he was very physically athletic. This kid is just boxing gifted. He's boxing gifted.
He's already better to me. He's already better skilled than Anthony Joshua.
Yes,
I'm just gonna be real. He's already better skilled than Anthony Joshua, and I'm, you know, like I said, we're veering off into boxing right now, and I hope, you know, you guys are still following us. I hope everyone knows who Anthony Joshua is. If not, you know, look him up on YouTube. But he's pretty mainstream, you know, heavyweight, big guy. First came onto the scene when he beat Vladimir Klitschko.
Right.
So, you know, he's been around. And he just lost to Daniel Dubois in his last fight. He got knocked out in an epic fight. That was an epic atmosphere in that fight. But I think Moses Atama is more skilled than Anthony Joshua. But yeah, before we get into all those guys, you know, the over the pond guys, let's start filling them in on some of the great, 5 great mainstream fights that are coming up in the next
in the
couple of
U.S.
months with
Yeah.
U.S. fighters.
Yeah, with the U.S. So the first one that I'm going to throw out is so that everybody kind of knows is, did you all know that Manny Pacquiao is training right now in
Wow.
L.A. With Freddie Roach, and he is coming back at the good old tender age of 46 years old. He is getting a title shot. He's going to be fighting for the WBC welterweight championship. This is the same belt that Sugar Ray Leonard held, the 147-pound WBC belt. And he is fighting Mario Barrios. And if you're not familiar with Mario Barrios is a Mexican American kid who's the current WBC 147-pound champ. You might have known him from the guy being knocked out by Gervonta Davis at 140. You might remember that. You might also remember him, though, from last year. He beat Medina's brother. He beat Fabian Medina to defend the WBC title. And he was, some people call it when you become the email champion. I don't like to say it that way, but when Terrence Crawford left the division after beating Errol Spence 2 years ago in that epic undisputed fight, Terrence Crawford left, right? Terrence Crawford left, which made the belts go to the interim champions at the time.
And that's how Barrios got the belt.
And that's how Barrios got the belt. So when me and Eternal Raider aren't saying that Mario Barrios isn't worthy of a champion. We're just saying that when we think of the champions, we don't think of him as the best one in that 147 group. He's probably the third best.
And guess what? Manny might actually have a chance.
Yeah,
actually have a chance. So, and that's a synopsis of what he's saying right now. I know you guys don't really know Barrios, but everyone knows Manny Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao has a chance against this welterweight champion that's coming up right now that he's slated to fight. And when is that fight? When is the Pacquiao fight?
Yeah, that fight itself, guys, is July 19th is going to be one of the most busiest fight schedules that you're going to see, because on that one date there's going to be the heavyweight undisputed championship of the world that's going to be happening in the UK between Dubois and Usyk. Then there's going to be the Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios fight. You're also going to have the Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora fight. We'll get into that in a second. And then in that same July period, July 19th, there's a Shakur Stevenson fight that's coming out. William Cepeda, and again, and what we want you guys to do.
Let's talk about that one.
What we want you guys to do, Boone Beats, Mike Bonner, is we want you to understand that me and Brad here, we watch boxing every week because there is boxing every week. It's just like watching the NFL, right? If you guys had the DAZN app, DAZN, like him and I do, or if you want to watch it on your free box or whatnot, just tomorrow morning, there's this huge event in the UK with that knockout kid we're talking about, Moses Atama. And the difference is when you watch it across the pond, it feels like what it used to feel like here in the 80s and 90s when we watch boxing, where they're filling out stadiums, right? So it's interesting, for example, that in the NFL, there's 2 games set up at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Green Bay's playing there, and another, and the Vikings are going to play there twice, right? But you and I, Eternal Raider, just watched that stadium get packed with Eubank Jr. versus Ben. That's same.
Oh my God! What an atmosphere that was! Look, okay, hey, Mike Bonner, that's my cousin. So when I say cousin, I'm talking about Mike Bonner. Yes, you do know Boom Beats. You do, Mike, Cuzzo, you do know Boom Beach. Trust me, you do. Think about 98. That's all I got to say. When you came out here to stay with us in 98, that's Boom Beats, a.k.a. Rob. So we'll get off of that one. But, yeah, man, that was a hell of an atmosphere at Tottenham Spur Stadium for that Conor Ben fight. That was amazing. The Ben Eubank fight was amazing.
So and that's what we're trying to explain to you guys, is that when the NFL goes there, I could only hope that the NFL can match that electricity. Because if you watch that fight, or in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Eternal Raider 72 to put that fight on his playlist so you guys could go on his playlist just to watch it. Because if you watch it, even if you just watch the last round, you're going to go, I can't believe a boxing match is this electric. And that's how electric it was. Everybody was in it. Everyone was like standing room, yelling. It was crazy. It was crazy.
And, full disclosure, everybody that jumps into the comments, man, everybody that subscribe to the channel, you guys are my Eternals. So I call y'all my Eternals. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you know what? I do believe that Manny does have something in the tank. Boom Beat says he thinks that Manny still's got something in the tank. I do too.
And and that's the thing. So full disclosure to Mike and Boone Beat. So I that's one of the backgrounds that I have that Eternal Raider knows about is I worked with Freddie during that time when Manny was there, and I was a part of that.
Let him know.
That whole rise. So I'm just going to give you the info that I know from what I see. To be fair to Manny, he is 46 years old, and it's amazing for anybody to want to go through those same workouts because they are not fun to do. Keep in mind that at 46, we've seen George Foreman do it. He did it at 45. We've seen Bernard Hopkins do it. He did it at both 46 years old and 48. Most people forget that Bernard Hopkins became the oldest champion ever when he beat John Pasquale for the light heavyweight title at 46. But people forget that he lost the belt to Chad Dawson, and then he had to reclaim it and win the IBF against Tavoris Cloud at 48. So he's the oldest ever champion at 48 years old.
I remember those fights. Now, I'll say this. This is what I'll say about Manny. And I feel like, I do agree with Boom Beats when he says that he feels like Manny has something left in the tank. But I will caution this. I don't want Manny to think that he's the old Manny, because I've seen a few YouTube clips of him showing his speed and all that, But his speed looks good, when you're shadow boxing and all that. But I don't want him to go into these fights or to this fight thinking that he can rely on those type of reflexes and that hand speed to get him by. He's going to have to fight a more calculated fight. Right. He's going to have to set this kid up and catch him.
Right.
And he has to be a lot more ring savvy.
Right. Right. Now, here's the good news for everybody who's going to get in. You guys are all, trust me, if you're a mainstream casual, you're going to end up watching it because the name is Manny Pacquiao and everybody remembers Manny Pacquiao, and they're going to do it up. They're going to talk about how he's going to come back to be one of the oldest champions ever and blah, blah, blah. Right. The good news about a fight like this is Mario Barrios, if nothing else, is an all action type guy. He's chinny. When he gets caught, he gets dropped. He gets up and he fights back. His last fight was on Netflix on the undercard of that horrible Jake Paul, Mike Tyson event.
That fiasco, that farce.
That fiasco. But the good news about that card was that there were 3 really good boxing matches. Shushu Carrington was on that card. Mario Barrios was on that card. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor was on that card. So
that was a classic.
At least we got to watch, real boxing before that fiasco with Tyson versus Jake Paul. But if you watched the Mario Barrios fight, and you're right, fixing what I have, Father Time is undefeated. You're absolutely right about that. But if you watched Mario Barrios versus Abel Ramos was a 140 guy who was coming up to 147.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be an easy fight for Barrios. And then he got dropped in the 4th and all hell broke loose. and it ended up becoming a war. And it became a draw. And I honestly believe that's the reason why Manny Pacquiao is coming back, is because he feels like, well, if there's any of these guys,
I can get one. I can get a quick one.
I can get one, right? I can get, and I'm not even saying he might get it and then just retire again, right?
Yeah.
Because honestly, if I was in Manny's camp again, I would highly advise him not to get anywhere near Jaron Bootsinas.
Look. We're gonna get into that in a second. Look, we're not even gonna talk about. Okay, look. I want to, I want to jump on a couple of mainstream guys. We know Manny Pacquiao's mainstream, but I want to jump on
Shakur,
the Lamont Roach.
Oh, Lamont Roach.
No,
Okay.
the Lamont Roach Tank Davis fight. I don't know. All you guys in the chat, I don't know how many of you guys saw the first Davis Roach fight, but that was one of the best fights of the year to me.
Right.
Just because we didn't expect much from Roach, and he gave us way more than we thought that he would. So I'm very intrigued. To me, and we'll get to Zepeda and Shakur as well, because that's a great fight. That's a great fight. But let's talk about Lamont.
Yeah. Let me set the table for the chat and for everybody who's listening. You guys have to understand that boxing is very similar to the NBA right now, in the sense that so many of the great champions and fighters are all international. But we do have an American group of kids that are dominating, but they're between 135 and 154.
Yep.
150. That's our sweet spot. If you're a USA boxing fan, our sweet spot is 135 and 154. Now, the problem that we've had is, unlike the 80s and unlike the 90s, in where, Leonard fought Hearns and Duran fought, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody was, they weren't scared of getting the loss.
We're going to have some throwback shows. We're going to have some throwback shows too with those names.
Yeah. So what's happening now is, if you know who Gervonta Tank Davis is, he comes from that Maryland, Virginia, Baltimore area, right? This kid, and I know that Eternal Raider loves this kid, and I'm not saying that I don't think this kid is talented. At 29 now, though, I mean, he's really let the years go by without him ever having a super fight with anyone. But he is fighting. He is currently the WBA 135-pound champion. That would be lightweight. That's the same belt that Roberto Duran held, Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather. So, just so that you guys know some mainstream names. So Gervonta Tank Davis is definitely a ticket seller in America, for sure. He'll sell out an arena. The issue with him has been, he tends to fight people that aren't really up to his level. That's the issue with him, which is why when he finally broke the $1 million pay-per-view when he fought Ryan Garcia. And you remember that, right? When he fought Ryan Garcia, and everybody wanted to see it. So, and he knocked out Ryan Garcia. So that was great. So he fought Lamont Roach, who is the WBA 130-pound champion. That's super featherweight, okay?
Right.
So he's still the WBA super featherweight champ. He's the 130-pound champ. And Lamont Roach, who was pretty much kind of the dominant name at 130, but he wanted everybody to know who he is, got this offer from Tank Davis to fight, to move up to 135 to fight him.
135,
This happened in March. What happened to ladies and gentlemen who are listening, and to everybody who's listening on the replay and on the chat, is the majority narrative was, Tank's going to kill him. Tank knocked out Frank Martin. Tank knocks out everybody. Tank's going to knock out Lamont Roach.
I thought the same thing.
Now, this is why I try to explain to Eternal Raider that us in the inside boxing world kind of know certain things. And if you've been watching these kids like I have growing up in the amateurs, you kind of know so-and-so can give so-and-so a hard time. So I did say, and I'm not going to say that I thought Lamont Roach would win. What I said was, I don't think people should be disrespecting Lamont Roach that much, because number one, anytime you get up to the world championship, it should be respected. It's very difficult to do. They don't just hand out those belts. You have to really train, and to make it up to even get the opportunity to become a world champion someday, you should never be disrespected. If you get one of those belts, you should never be disrespected. Secondly, Lamont Roach in the amateurs was around Tank Davis. So he, there was never that fear factor.
They knew each other from the same area. They knew each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His dad used to bring him to. His dad used to bring Lamont's dad used to bring Tank to the amateur tournaments with them. You know, like they kind of knew each other's flow. They've been watching each other this whole time. So, like what I'm saying, right, Brad? Like he wasn't scared of him. And if you're not scared of Tank, now you're not scared of his power. And if you're not scared of his power, then now it becomes a boxing chess match. And the boxing chess match of it is why you like the match so much.
I really did. I would say this. He did some things to neutralize Tank that I hadn't seen before. And first of all, when you fight Tank, it's almost like fighting a guy like a Mike Tyson. You have to get over the fear of being knocked out. You have to get over the fear of the power, right? Because this is what you get when you fight Tank Davis. This is what we see. And Lamont Roach stood up to that early on in the fight. And I think that threw Tank off, that threw him off of his game a little bit. And here's another key factor that was a big key factor for me in that fight. Every time Tank Davis landed something of any meaning, Lamont Roach came right back and did the same thing. He fought back immediately. And sometimes when you watch fighters, they're already intimidated by the time they walk into the ring if they don't have the right mindset. So to me, I thought Lamont Roach came into the ring with the right mindset, and he said, I'm not going to get bullied. I will not be bullied. I'm going to give as just as good as I get.
Right.
And I think that made all the difference in the fight. I thought he countered well. I thought he counterpunched well in that fight. So I'm looking forward to that rematch because now we're going to find out what Tank Davis has in him. Right? We're going to find out what Tank has in him. And because he hasn't had this kind of adversity in his career. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see where Tank, how he approaches this fight.
And to the old school guys who you may remember this, Mike Bonner, Boone Beach, you guys might remember Fixing What I Have. You might remember this, but I kind of see Lamont Roach against Tank Davis the same way Vernon Forrest was against Shane Mosley.
Shane Mosley.
Yeah, because at the time, Shane Mosley seemed like this. He's fast and he's so great, and he was knocking everybody out. And then he met James.
And you know what?
Especially was right there,
especially coming off the two fights where he beat De La Hoya.
Exactly.
Right.
What
do they say?
Now hold on now, though. Don't get me going on me telling you that I thought De La Hoya beat him.
No, man, no. He beat De La Hoya. Look, I think he beat De La Hoya in those fights.
Look,
I did. I thought he beat De La Hoya in those fights.
This is why you and I we're always gonna have our moments. Like, come on now, when we do that, did he or did he not beat so and so? That's one of them. That's gonna be one of them because I 100% believe to this day that the first fight I thought De La Hoya beat him, and the second fight for sure I thought De La Hoya beat Shane Mosley, and George Foreman did too. So did Jim Lampley. Everybody thought that might have been the biggest robbery.
Look, they call. Listen, I'm an Oscar De La Hoya fan. I love Oscar. Don't get me wrong, because the one thing about Oscar fought everybody.
Right.
Oscar put every skin on the wall that he could. So I have no problem with Oscar De La Hoya. Don't think I'm here hating on De La Hoya. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. But I thought Mosley outboxed him. I thought he showed more of his physical. I thought he showed more of his physical tools, his speed, his elusiveness, and I think that's what won the judges over in that fight, in my honest opinion, because he landed in combination and he was faster and he was just a little slicker, a little more explosive. I think that kind of swayed the judges in both of those fights because when you watch Oscar De La Hoya, like right when he fought Felix Trinidad, right?
Yeah.
Remember he fought Felix Trinidad?
Yeah.
Sometimes De La Hoya has a tendency to take his foot off the gas.
Right.
And that hurt him in certain fights. The Trinidad fight, I think it hurt him. Not so much in the Floyd Mayweather fight. I think Floyd just was a little bit more savvy. But the two Mosley fights, I thought that was the case. I'm sorry, yo. I thought that was the case as well. I thought he just he took his foot off the gas.
I mean, and what I'll say is what made those fights, and this is in the 90s now, the 90s and 2000, what made those fights so exciting is you had two people in Mosley and in De La Hoya willing to engage. And like you were saying, I think that's what we need to see out of Lamont Roach is,
Yes.
and Tank Davis is,
Yes.
I know Lamont Roach is kind of like, and this is why I was saying it was like Vernon Forrest. Vernon Forrest was willing to engage with Shane Mosley, but I think that Shane Mosley didn't realize how good of a sharp counterpuncher Vernon Forrest really is. And that's the same exact thing with Tank Davis. I don't think he understood, like, look, man, you got a guy in Lamont Roach who's not scared of you, who's every bit as big as you, and actually can take your punches. So now you got to let your skills show up so that the knockout power happens correctly, you know?
Well, that's one of my things. That's why I was saying that I'm so curious to see how Tank shows up, prepares for this fight, not only physically but mentally. Right? Because the one criticism that I will have of Tank Davis, and he's one of my favorite fighters. He's in my top 3 favorite fighters to watch.
Right.
But he's a slow starter and he doesn't throw in combination. Now, I'm the type of guy, just to let everybody out there in the chat know, I'm a Sugar Ray Leonard guy first. Sugar Ray Leonard is my apex, like Michael Jordan is my apex in basketball, right? And I'm a Sugar Ray Leonard guy. And, whoever's listening in the chat, I'll just let you know right now, welterweight, 147, pound for pound, Sugar Ray would beat Floyd Mayweather any day of the week. That's my opinion. And the reason why I've always, and I've told Angelo this a lot. I've told Angelo this many times. Sugar Ray Leonard threw in combination. When you look at guys like a Floyd Mayweather, even to a certain extent, a Tank Davis, he's a boxer, not a fighter. Right? And to me, there's differences. There's a difference between a boxer and a fighter. Just like Boom Beat said that there's a difference between a tall man and a big man. Right. There's a difference between a boxer and a fighter. And Sugar Ray Leonard was a fighter.
Sugar Ray Leonard was a
fighter.
He was both now.
But at heart. And when I say at heart, that means when that button gets pressed, he's going to throw in combination. He's going to come forward. He's not just going to rely on his defense to get him by. He's going to be the aggressor and the oppressor. So I feel like those guys, to me, are the ones like a Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran could do both. But you go push that button with Roberto Duran and see what you get. See what you get.
Well, I mean, and again, when you go back in time, and that'll be on some of our other shows where we'll kind of talk about this, but where Sugar Ray Leonard was able to prove where he was at is in the Benitez fight. He had to pull out some of that fighter in him. He couldn't just box Benitez. He had to,
the fight I'm going to. You know the fight I'm going to. The Tommy Hearns fight. 1981, September 9th, 1981. Yes, I remember that. I was 9 years old, and that was the first real fight that I had a chance to see in real time, and I'll never forget that fight. That fight made me a boxing fan at 9 years old. Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns won. I watched this man fight with a detached retina.
Yeah.
He fought with a detached retina. Sugar Ray Leonard didn't fight again for 3-4 more years after that fight. And he fought that fight with a detached retina, and he was losing on the scorecards and came back and knocked Tommy Hearns out in the 14th round. That's what I call a fighter. That's a fighter. I have not seen a guy like Floyd Mayweather do that. I don't know if he had that in him.
Well, to be fair to Floyd, because again, to everybody who's listening, I actually did get a chance to work with Floyd and the Money Team in the gym. I got a chance to understudy with Roger Mayweather. God
and
rest
don't get me wrong, pretty boy, the pretty boy Floyd was a killer.
What I was gonna say is
pretty boy Floyd was a killer. We not so much money.
But hold on though, Eternal Raider. To not put Floyd in a vacuum, you have to understand that if I'm arguing for Floyd's greatness, then you can't really disclaim that at 135 pounds, Floyd Mayweather was one of the best at that weight class, at that singular weight class, 135. He defended the belt 8 times. He beat people like Corrales,
Man,
Jesus
classic,
Chavez.
classic.
Like he was beating the people that were on
Classic.
the top during that
Classic.
135 run, right? In that
No
135 run. And so if we start to talk the whole, well, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Floyd Mayweather, Sugar Ray never fought at 135, though. You know what I mean?
But see,
like
you're talking. That's what I'm saying. You're talking 135, right?
Right.
And Floyd really didn't get to his apex until he got to that 147. Right now,
well,
for the mainstream, for the mainstream boxing, when he got to 147, and then he changed to money, and it was all about the money in a certain way. Don't get me wrong. I rooted for Floyd in every fight that I saw him fight. So that's not what I'm saying. But you know me, I'm a guy that likes to jump eras. I'm a guy that likes to do the what ifs. You know what I mean?
No. And on a what if scenario, if we were doing a panel, if you and I were kind of going back and forth on it, I could argue for where Sugar Ray might have had a hard time with a style like Floyd's. But at the end of the day, if it was a 15-round fight, I definitely say Sugar Ray Leonard wins it. If it was a 12-round fight, it might get closer, but I'd probably still pick Sugar Ray, because if I'm picking Sugar Ray Leonard, the Sugar Ray Leonard that fought Tommy Hearns, or even the Sugar Ray Leonard that fought Wilfred Benitez, if I pick that Sugar Ray Leonard against the Floyd that fought Cotto, let's say, right? Because we're talking 147 now. We're talking that 147 period. Or even the Floyd that fought De La Hoya. No, because when he fought De La Hoya, it was at 154. So it has to be a 147 Floyd.
When they fought at 154? I thought they fought at 147.
No. That was a 154 fight. No, the 147 fights that Floyd had was against Zab Judah,
Ricky Hatton.
Ricky Hatton, right? So that's what I'm saying is it's like, it's hard to put Floyd in that vacuum against, like, a more fair comparison would have been who would have won between Floyd Mayweather and Roberto Duran at 135, like things like that, right? Because if you start
let me just ask you, Mr. Boxing Aficionado, who would you have taken in that fight at 135?
Man, I mean, I remember being at Wildcard Gym with Freddie, and every time someone would ask, and who's the greatest 135 ever, without a doubt, in front of Manny Pacquiao, you know,
it's got to be Roberto
Duran. And even to this day, he would still say at lightweight it'd be Roberto Duran, just because, man, like, can you think of how great
Mano de Piedra, hands of stone.
Yeah, because he had everything. He had power. He had forward attack. He could box back if he needed to. He knew how to fight on the inside. He knew how to fight on the outside. He had great, like that weird footwork, but it was great footwork.
And guess what?
Out of the way.
He was a stone cold dog and a savage.
Yeah,
he was a savage.
A killer for sure. Yeah. He was a killer for sure.
Look, I'll give you Eternals. I'm gonna give my Eternals some homework. Go back and watch Roberto Duran versus Davey Jacob?
Oh, yeah. That's a 154, but that's Davey Boy Green. Davey Boy Green
at Madison Square Garden.
That was his comeback fight after losing the No Mas fight. That was him kind of rebuilding himself back up. He fights at 154 and he beats the WBA champion.
Unbelievable.
At that time. Yeah.
Unbelievable fight.
Now, actually, if for the Eternals who are listening to this, you guys might want to, just so that you understand why we have so much reverence for someone like Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran started at 135 pounds as the champ, and then he also went all the way up and beat John the Beast Mugabe at 160 pounds to be the champ. So that weight differential is the one that Crawford's trying to do now. You know, so it just goes to show you, like, Crawford's not doing anything that we haven't seen before. We've seen that story. We know who did it. You know, we know how great he was.
Speaking of Mr. Terrence Crawford, let's segue into Crawford Canelo. Do you have any news for me about Crawford Canelo?
Yeah. So the weird thing is, it started with you and I watching that fight together, and it was a horrible fight to watch. I understand, in William Skull versus Canelo, but at the end of it, you see both of them get in the ring. Terrence Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez are both in the ring. They both face each other. They show the new 24 karat gold Ring magazine belt. They hype it up and they say Allegiant Stadium, Friday, September 12th. Book it. Everyone, this is going to be Canelo versus Crawford, right? Now, what I told you
in our stadium, right?
Right. Now, what I told you prior to this, and I was even talking to a couple of my friends about this, is the problem that we have in the boxing community, Boone Beats, the problem that we have is no one asked for Crawford to move up in weight to fight Canelo. You know what we in the boxing world had been asking for was for Crawford to quit being scared and fight Jaron Boots Enos.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted. But he decided that he was going to leave 147, go to 154, barely beat Madrimov, and then he decided again, I'll move up to 168 to fight Crawford. So what we know about this is he's 37 years old. He's trying to get the highest payday of his life, right? Does it really even interest you, though, Mike Bonner or Boone Beats, fixing what I have? Like, does it even, guys, interest you that this guy's going to move up to fight Canelo? That's number one. Number two, Boone Beats, you saw that Canelo fight. So since you saw that Canelo fight, you know for a fact that all of us are sitting here going, well, yeah, now the odds should at least be 50-50 that Crawford will beat Canelo, because Canelo looked like he was walking on sand, man. Like, he looked.
And guess what? Guess what? Let's just, full disclosure, let's just be real about it. Canelo has kind of looked like that in all of his fights. Well, he fought Edgar Berlanga, and I thought Berlanga kind of let him off the hook. I think
True.
The way Berlanga fought that fight, he didn't believe in himself.
True.
I don't think Berlanga believed in himself, because Berlanga had all. Listen, I tell everyone when they come to me about Canelo, and don't get me wrong, Canelo's a great fighter. I have a lot of respect for Canelo as a fighter. But Dimitri Bivol gave you the game plan and the blueprint of how to beat Canelo.
Pretty much.
Anyone that has, look, when you have the size and skills and punching power that Berlanga has, he should have attacked that fight in a totally different way, but he didn't believe in himself.
Right. Now, the second thing, too, just so, and I'll let you keep going on it, but let's not forget that Berlanga did get dropped and Canelo does hit hard. So that's probably why he kind of, gave up a little bit.
But I just thought Berlanga fought so cautiously.
Yes.
Like I felt like he fought with such caution, and that's why he kind of got knocked down. You know what I mean? But I felt like that. I feel like if they have a rematch, Berlanga will probably be like, okay, I know what I can do against this guy now. But
now, now there you go again, stirring it up with me, because I don't think Berlanga will beat Shiraz. I think Hamza Shiraz is going to beat Berlanga.
They don't even know who Shiraz is. Shiraz is a monster. Shiraz is
they're fighting on
right
the undercard
now.
Of Shakur and William Cepeda.
What is Shiraz? He's 168, right?
Well, he was 160 when you thought he lost to Adames, but now he's moving up to 168. That was a draw, but now he's moving up to 68.
Now they call him the Middle Eastern Tommy Hearns.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Isn't he Shiraz is billed as the Middle Eastern Tommy Hearns, and we'll get into those guys a little bit later. We don't want to veer off too much. We'll get back to Canelo. Let's get back to Canelo Crawford. Now, I will say this. I will say this. Crawford has the skills. I think Crawford has the savvy. I think he has the understanding, especially watching Canelo's last few fights.
Yeah.
I think that he has the skill and savvy to beat Canelo. I really do.
Right.
I think he will beat Canelo.
Right.
A lot of people will disagree with me. Canelo, he has lost a lot of hand speed. He's lost a lot of foot speed. And I was surprised in that William Skull fight. He looked like he didn't know how to cut the ring off.
Yeah, he looked like he didn't even really want to be in there to try.
Yeah, he looked like he didn't even know how to cut the ring off. Like, I don't care what you say. And Skull fought, don't get me wrong, Skull fought a weak-ass fight. Skull did, matter of
He
fact,
did
I
what
sat there.
human boxing
I
is,
watched that fight with Boom Beats. Me and Boom Beats sat here and watched that fight. So he already knows what I'm talking about. And I was, and
Right.
look, and I was actually advocating for Skull because I felt like he was doing what he was supposed to do in a certain way. But a guy like Canelo is supposed to elevate that fight, cut the
Yeah,
ring
and I
off,
agree.
and
Okay.
put the
So,
pressure on Skull, which he did
yes,
not do. And
yes,
if you go back and watch a lot of Canelo fights, there's a lot of times where he's not throwing any punches whatsoever. He's not, he's
right,
just following guys around.
right,
He's
right.
following guys around. So
Now,
if I
now,
look, he's following guys around. And if I see that, and I saw that in that Skull fight, he's not going to be able to do that against Terrence Crawford. He's just not. I don't care about the weight disparity. I don't care about any of that. He's not going to be able to follow Crawford around and think that Crawford's got to make the whole fight. Crawford has the ability to get in, throw in combination, and get out, use his footwork, and make Canelo look very old and pedestrian. I feel that.
Well, this is why the news, the most recent news that I gave you, Eternal Raider, and chat, you guys might want to know this, is there's rumors from the circles that I'm hearing that Canelo isn't really that excited about this fight coming up against Crawford, and that we're not saying he will retire, but it's possible that since he just made $80 million on the Skull fight, that he could retire the same way Sugar Ray Leonard did it when they were building up Leonard Hagler.
Marvin Hagler. Yeah.
Where he's like,
hey, you remember he goes,
retire, and then maybe come back later, let Crawford work for money kind of thing, right?
What did Sugar Ray Leonard say? He goes, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. I remember when he told Marvin Hagler that when they had him face off. He goes, I know everyone will love this fight, and I know the world wants to see this fight, but unfortunately, it'll never happen. And that's all build up. Canelo's doing the same thing. There's no way that Canelo Alvarez is going to pass up that kind of payday to fight Terrence Crawford. He's not going to pass it up. I don't see it, Transplant. I don't see it.
Let me give you some of the breadcrumbs, Eternal Raider. So the next thing that happened is when the NFL schedule release happened, and we got all excited about our Raiders and the stadium and our home games and all of that. I know you're coming up here for the Bears game, which, by the way, just so that you know, the Bears game is one of the most expensive games in the NFL.
I already know. But guess what? Hey, Cuzzo, Mike Bonner, we are going to be in Vegas the weekend of September 28th for the Bears-Raiders game. All my Eternals out there, I got a lot of Bear fans on my side, my side of the family. I got a lot of Bear fans, my brother included. We will all be in Vegas for that game. Chicago Bears, Las Vegas Raiders, September 28th. So if you guys want to join us, we will be going live. We'll have some things going on. We'll be broadcasting the whole weekend. That's just a quick caveat, but yes, that is one of the days that is circled on the calendar this year.
Yeah, and we'll be hanging out, obviously.
No doubt.
I'll get to meet you guys too. But
no doubt.
When the schedule came out, then the very next day or within that week, Turkey Al-Sheikh came out and said, "Oh, hey, so we're no longer going to do it at Allegiant," which to me made sense, by the way, because that's the Monday Night Football opener. So it's like, yeah, man, they're not going to try to mess up that stadium before the Raider Charger opener.
Exactly.
So now they're picking a different location for it, and it could be anywhere now. We don't know if it's going to be in Vegas. It could be anywhere in the world now. We don't know. But they said we're still doing the fight. Then Eddie Hearn came out and said, I don't know if that fight's going to happen because, and this is where this talk about Canelo retiring, he doesn't really have, ask yourself this question, which is a fair one. If Canelo beats Crawford, whether it's by decision or by domination or whatever, would you really say that Canelo shouldn't have won? Because if you're a casual fan, you're going to say, well, he was the bigger guy. He outweighed him. He has all the belts. You
But
know,
that's what makes this fight all the more intriguing. That's what makes it all the more intriguing because we do know the natural factors that Canelo has as far as being in his favor to beat Terrence Crawford. Right? Terrence Crawford came up from what, 140?
147.
So
You're doing
yeah,
it. Well,
yeah,
originally, when Terrence was with us, when he was still like growing up in Top Rank, when I was with Top Rank, Terrence Crawford started at 35. He won the championship at 35. Then he won the championship at 40. Then he won the championship at 47.
Right.
The thing about Terrence Crawford is that he was able to become undisputed at both 140 and 147.
147. Right. Right.
Yeah. But again, you know, and this is our whole point, Eternal Raider, is that we wanted to see him fight Boots, and we wanted to see Canelo fight Benavidez. But you could already see that both this is kind of like a money grab situation, like a
took the
whole
words right out of my mouth.
You know,
and because again, you know what? Yeah, I mean, because you know what? Remember, Terrence Crawford is getting up there in age as well. He's getting up there in age as well. So so the payday, you know, like you're looking for that payday right now. You know, and I can understand Canelo saying, I'm sorry, I can understand Crawford saying, well, look, yeah, I could get in there with this young gun, but you know what? I'm gonna let and probably at this stage of Crawford's career, 140 making 147 might not be as easy. Right? Making 147 might not be as easy for him. And then for you to try to make 147 and then get in there and fight with a guy like Boots, who's gonna come at you all day long, he's coming at you all day long. I can see him saying, well, man, let me go get this money against Canelo. This is $100 million fight. Let me go ahead and let me go grab this bread right now. You know what I mean? So I get it. I don't think it's a ducking situation. I just think that there's a chance.
I mean, it's one of these things where the way we see it is, does Crawford have anything to prove to any of us? No. He became undisputed at 140. He became undisputed at 147. If anything, by beating Errol Spence, he could have just retired right then and there, and it would have been fine. The problem is, if you put skin in the game and you stay, then the purists like us, we want you to fight the best. Right. And when Crawford decided to go up to 154 and fight Madrimov and win the WBA title at 154, which is great. That's fine. We now require you to fight Virgil Ortiz. We now require you to fight.
We have not mentioned Virgil Ortiz in this mix, and yeah, you're right. I did want to see Crawford, but I'll tell you what. More so, Crawford versus Ortiz, I would rather see Boots versus Ortiz.
Now, to be fair, the only reason why you haven't seen Boots versus Ortiz is Ortiz is at 154, and Boots is still the unified Ring Magazine 147-pound champion. His goal is to become the undisputed 147 before he even moves up to 54. Ortiz, on the other hand, the whole thing with Ortiz, and I know, and for you guys who are the Eternals listening to the chat, Eternal Raider loves his Virgil Ortiz, and I like Virgil Ortiz, but I don't think I love him as Eternal Raider does.
Well, no. He's definitely got some cracks in the armor that I've seen. I like it. Look, the one thing I like about Virgil Ortiz, he's a relentless fighter. He's coming to fight every fight. He had, you know what I mean? And I have an affinity for guys that's coming to lay it on the line every time they fight.
Yeah, and absolutely. I all the respect to him. But he's got to, what Virgil Ortiz has to do now is he's got people in front of him like Fundura. He's got Murtalazayev. He's got all these other champions he's got to get to at 154, which is the ones that's why Crawford Ortiz would have made sense. But the reason why Crawford didn't want to fight Ortiz is the same reason why he didn't want to fight Boots. Why do I fight a harder, younger fighter? If I'm LeBron James, why am I playing SGA and Tyrese Halliburton when I should be playing, other people that have my name? Yeah, right. So
but here's the thing. You just kind of answered, you just kind of answered it yourself. Due to his age, right? Like now, if he's 30 years old 32 years old, somewhere around there, then it makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
My pops, rest in peace. He always had this one saying: "I got more years in back of me than I do in the front."
Right.
Right. So
Right.
yes, right now, if I'm Terrence Crawford, yeah, I need to go ahead and get this bread right now. I need to
Right.
go ahead and fight the biggest fights that I can right now, and that comes with a risk. And that
Yeah.
risk is moving up to 168 to fight Canelo Alvarez.
Right. Right.
So
And
I
that's
don't,
and
I
that's what
don't.
I'm saying is now, do you believe that Canelo really has a risk? Because what's the risk? The only risk
Well,
Canelo has is he would lose his reputation if he were to lose to Crawford. Other than that,
well,
if
in the
Canelo
boxing,
won right
listen.
now,
Well, I mean, in the boxing world, yeah, he could lose a little bit of his reputation. He's only got 2 losses to Mayweather and Bevo, right?
that's
So
right.
yeah, there's a little bit of reputation that he could lose there. Yeah, especially with a guy coming up from a that kind of weight class. So I get
Right.
that. I get
Right.
that. But at the same time, we all know that boxing has always been based and catered around the money. And
Right.
Canelo even
Right.
and Canelo even, Canelo wants the money as well. He's one of those guys that's gonna take the money grab. He's been able to make a cool mint out of fighting the William Skulls of the world,
Right.
right? We know
Right.
that about
Right.
Canelo. And
Right.
at this point in time, I'm kind of I got a little bit of fatigue with that. I have
Yeah,
some
that's
fatigue with
fair.
that.
That's fair. That's the
And
same
and and,
thing we
and
got with
I
Tank.
like the fight. You know what? I was excited about the Berlanga fight with Canelo, but I still had, it's time for Canelo to get tested a little bit more, right?
Right.
And
Right.
Terrence Crawford is that guy to test him. So, like I said, that's a fight that I'm very much looking forward to. I think it's going to be one of the most epic fights in boxing for the era. Right now, I think that's
If it
something that
happens.
boxing needs.
If it
Yeah,
happens.
you know what? Listen. Canelo savvy. We know Canelo. We know what Canelo's doing. We got to drum up that interest. We got to get them dollars up. I don't think Canelo's ducking no phase. Canelo ain't ducking no smoke. Canelo's gonna get in there and do what he's got to do against Crawford. He's not afraid of that. But right now, I think he's just trying to, hey, make sure you put that money on the table. That I think
Right.
that's where Canelo is. I don't think the retirement thing's legit.
Well,
It's just to make sure the money's on the table.
well, the information I can give you is straight from the sources. Is the reason why a lot of people believe that it might be real, and I'll end it with this: is his contract guarantee for his next 3 fights are all 80 millions minimums. It doesn't matter who he fights. So his next fight in September, that's an 80 million guarantee. He could fight Hamza Shiraz. He could fight Berlanga again. He could fight Skull again. No one will care, and he's still going to get paid 80
And
million.
guess what? No one will watch.
Yes,
After
I
that
know.
Skull fight, no one will watch. Like Canelo,
Right.
you are now on the clock. And like Boom
Right.
Beat said, I'd be smelling blood if I was Crawford too. Because
Yeah.
you gave me so much. That performance against Skull gave me so much to criticize and dissect and critique. I think, like Boom Beat said, salivating. I'm salivating to get in there with Canelo because I know I have superior foot speed, hand speed, and all the rest of it. And Canelo has not shown me that he can deal with a fighter with those properties. I just see it that way. Like I said, Bevo gave you the game plan of how to beat Canelo, and that's how you beat Canelo with a jab and straights and movement. He does not fare well against a guy that understands how to pump the jab, stay out of harm's way, land in combination, and get out of the way.
Well, Boone Beats, Mike Bonner, everybody else who's listening, and everybody's going to listen and replay. We already know this because I remember specifically being row 8 on the Canelo versus Mayweather fight. Because
You were there.
Floyd,
You were there.
oh yeah, no, so during that time, Floyd allowed us to watch his training for it, and I remember the thing that I took out of it, which was insane, which is why I have so much respect for Floyd, is I watched him spar way bigger people that were close to 200 pounds for that fight at his older age, at his older advanced age. And not only was he whooping him, it was like he was pulling off these basketball moves while he was whooping him. Like he would do a move, and then you could tell like it's a practice move. Then he's doing another move, and then he's doing it. And then when we were there for the fight, that's why when you watch it on TV, Brad, when we were there, he was looking at us. So when he pulled off something and then he would stare, it was like he was saying, hey, for all of you who were at the gym that watched me do it, did you see me just pull off that
Hey.
double move behind the back?
Crazy fun fact. I'll never forget that fight, and I'll tie this into our shared passion of the silver and black, the plata y negro, right? I'll share this. So a lot of guys that know me, a lot of people that know me, when the Raiders were playing in Oakland, my tradition was I'm going to take my family to every opening home game, right? Because right now, at that time we weren't really doing good as a football team. So my motto was, you know what, let's get it in the beginning of the season rather than the middle or the end, right? When the excitement is high, optimism is high. So that particular fight fell on the weekend of the Raiders opening home game that weekend. So I was in San Francisco. And usually when fights of that magnitude, I have a house full of people. I have a man cave full of people, and some of my Eternals that's listening or who will be listening, they already know. I have a house full. I have a man cave full when it's fight time. And I wasn't able to be there because I was in San Francisco. I was in Oakland for the opening home game. So I saw that fight at a movie theater. A jam-packed AMC movie theater in San Francisco, because we were up there for the Raider game. And my son is Raider Rundown. A lot of you guys know him. He got his own channel. He talks Raiders. And he was a little shorty at that time. And I'll never forget, I took him and his sister. We all went to the movies, and they went to go see some kid movie. And I went and watched Canelo Alvarez, Floyd Mayweather in a jam-packed movie theater with a bunch of other people. One of the best fight experiences that I ever had. And that was one of the best fights that I had ever seen in an atmosphere like that. So just a little fun fact, tying the Raiders into that. You know what I mean? We went up there for the weekend, and I had to see that fight in the movie theater. But great experience. Well,
I'll tell you this. It's interesting, too, that you watched it in the theater. And again, being there live was great. But let me ask you this question, and let's see if because this usually gets people. Because that event was so huge, and the way Mayweather had beaten that 23-year-old, bigger, younger, stronger Canelo, and the way he masterclassed him, basically. He basically was like, let me masterclass you so that you could learn what you need to do in order to be as great as me, right? It was very fun. Doubt. It wasn't even like a passing of the torch more than like what Bernard Hopkins did to Antonio Tarver, like let me school you, young pup, a little bit so you could kind of understand how things work.
Do you remember?
Yeah, do you remember the co-main event of that fight? Because most people don't.
Lucas Matisse and Danny Garcia.
That's right.
Come on, Transplant. Yeah. Don't test me now. Don't test me. Lucas Matisse and Danny Garcia, no doubt.
And remember,
Danny Garcia did his thing that night.
Were coming up at that time. They were
Garcia
really good coming up. Yeah. And then most people forget, like, that was a good fight. Danny Garcia versus Lucas Matisse was a really good fight that most people they forget about it. I'm like, are you kidding me? That was a great fight. That was a great co-main event.
Look. In the next couple of weeks, we're gonna have an exclusive boxing show. We're gonna bring a couple other guys on, and we're gonna talk about some of those. Because I don't want to lose some of the. I don't want to lose some of the viewers. Because we get to spitting out names, and when you're passionate about boxing, and you're one of those guys that you live for boxing. you can get lost in the mix real quick. When we start talking about fights. But yes, that was a great that was a great card.
Yeah. And we do want you guys to, we'll start putting some playlists on the Eternal Raider 72 playlist. We'll start putting out some of these fights that we're talking about, but we'll definitely put that Ben Eubanks one. And then to kind of wrap it up in terms of just mainstream American names, because we want you guys to get familiar with the Virgil Ortizes of the United States, the Tank Davis of the United States. We want you to know who Lamont Roach is. We want you to know who
Keyshawn Davis is.
Yeah, Keyshawn Davis,
Shakur Stevenson.
Shakur Stevenson, right? So Keyshawn Davis fights on June 8th, and you'll like him a lot because he's the knockout artist at 135. And essentially right now, when we're looking at that 135 division, and let's stick to that, right? We spent a lot of time talking about Gervonta Tank Davis, but we have Keyshawn Davis, who's the silver medalist from the Olympics, who is now the WBO champ, and a lot of people believe he can knock out Tank. And he's been calling out Gervonta for the last 2 years.
Oh, that would be a great fight.
That's a great fight. Yeah, he's pushing it out. Lomachenko, we're not sure yet if he's fully retired or not, but the new interim IBF champion is Raymond Murataya. And Murataya is another Mexican-American name that is undefeated at 135 pounds. He holds the interim IBF right now. So if Lomachenko comes back, then Lomachenko is the IBF champ. But if Lomachenko leaves,
or the winner of Shakur and
William Zepeda, right? And that's the one I was going to wrap and talk about. Is now this is where and we could wrap it up in here. Shakur Stevenson, to me, eternal chats, and everybody who's going to listen to this on replay, he's the Pernell Whitaker of our time right now. Now I know Brad, Eternal Raider 72, is going to disagree with me a little bit on it because he doesn't believe Shakur is that good, and I can understand why. I can understand, but having said this, let me just again reiterate that, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a USA boxing fan, then how do you not support someone who fought in the Olympics and won the silver medal? How do you not support someone who beat the man that was the champ at 26? Shakur put him and beat him and became a champ. Then the man that was the 130 champ, Shakur made Oscar Valdez look like
right.
And Oscar Valdez at the time was undefeated, and everybody was like, what happened here? It was kind of like his Mayweather Corrales moment. And even still, he goes up to 35, gets no respect because he basically dominates Edwin De Los Santos, who Keyshawn Davis is about to fight next. And the key thing about Shakur is extremely great defensively, really good at working the body, really slick with the movements going inside and out as a southpaw boxer. Does that remind you of anybody? I'm just saying, Eternal Raider, when I describe to you a fighter with these skills, does it remind you of anyone that you might have watched in the 80s and in the 90s, by the name of Sweet Pea? I'm just saying.
Sweet Pea Whitaker, no doubt. Look, listen. Yes, he does remind, he does have some Sweet Pea Whitaker skills. But you know what it is about boxing, right? We already know what it is about boxing, especially for these guys that have such an ego, that they're braggadocious. And I do like Shakur, and I think we have not seen the best of Shakur. I will say that we haven't seen the best of Shakur. That's why, you know what? Shout out to Boom Beats. You're right. I'm sitting right here in Fontana right now, and yes, Muratala is from Fontana. I'm sitting in Fontana right now. I live in Fontana, and Muratala is a monster. He's a banger. But the one thing I will say about Shakur is that's my old theory. I love fighters that throw in combination. I love fighters that can put them together. Right? I understand. I'm all about putting them together. You know what I mean? We're gonna get into some hip hop shows too, y'all. And when we talk about that MC shit, it's all about who can put it together. Can you put it together?
Big Daddy Kane can put it together.
Oh man, don't look, save that. Don't even save that right there. We ain't gonna do all that right now, but save that. But yeah, for real. So I want, but the Williams Zepeda fight will test him. He will have to. He will have to bring the guns.
Yes.
Right. And that's me. It's all about. Listen, I just want to see you bring the guns. It's time to bring the gun. Williams Zepeda is going to make you bring the guns. So we're going to learn a lot about. We're going to learn a lot about Shakur in this fight coming up in July. And guess what? We're going to preview that fight. All my Eternals out there, I want you to do your homework. I want you guys, if you guys don't know who Shakur Stevenson is, look him up on YouTube. If you guys probably don't know who Williams Zepeda is, look him up on YouTube as well. Styles make fights. And this is one of those fights where we're going to find out what style is going to prevail. And if we want to put Shakur on that, if we want to put Shakur in that upper echelon of those guys, he's going to have to come and bring his A game to fight that night. And I'm very excited for that fight. That's going to be one of the fights of the year, y'all.
And here's the thing about that, too. That's going to be July 19th. It's going to be at the Louis Armstrong Tennis Stadium, which is where they play the U.S. Open for tennis in New York.
Sweet.
Yeah, the co-main event of that is Edward Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz. Also on that card will be Albert Puello defending his WBC 140 championship against Subriel Matias. And for you guys who might not know who Subriel Matias is, unfortunately, he's a part of 3 years ago when that boxer died in the ring. It's because he was fighting Subriel Matias. Yeah. And that's how, the guy's killed the man. So you already know how hard this guy hits. He's got
I saw that fight.
Right. So that fight is happening on that card. And David Morrell is coming back from his loss to Benavidez, and he's fighting Imam Katayev, who is one of the up-and-coming 175 fighters. So it's a really good card. But again, me and the Transplant Raider, we're talking about Shakur Stevenson against William Zepeda. And I told him, I said, I think this is going to look like Floyd Mayweather versus Jesus Chavez in San Francisco. You remember that fight? Floyd Mayweather versus Jesus Chavez? Yeah. Yep. So I think it's going to look like that. And I agree with you that you want to see him tested. So let me ask you this before we wrap this bad boy up. We got 4 young, great 135 champions, All-American. Raymond Murataya is the interim IBF. Keyshawn Davis from that Virginia area, from Norfolk. He's the WBO. You got Tank from Maryland, from Baltimore. He's the WBA champ.
Keyshawn Davis.
And then you got Shakur Stevenson, who's from Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, the WBC. So between Keyshawn, Tank, Shakur, and Raymond Murataya, don't you kind of want to see it happen like it was in the 80s and 90s?
Let's see kings. Are we talking the 4 kings here?
Yeah, because they are very dominant, and they all have the resume. Murataya, again, it's sad that more people don't know about Murataya because he's undefeated. If you just watched how he fought against the same opponent, Abdullayev, that Tank beat, I thought he beat Abdullayev even better than Tank did, right? So I could see Murataya giving Tank Davis a good hard time, especially because Lamont Roach gave him a hard time. And then this is where you and I are always back and forth on this. I honestly believe that Tank Davis is tailor-made for Shakur to dominate him. I don't even think it's going to be a close fight. I don't even think that's why I'm telling you, if Lamont Roach beats Tank Davis, are you going to start to believe me that I've been telling you that Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn and these guys are on another level? And it's not that I don't like Tank. It's just that
look. There's a sliver of hate there for Tank from you. It's always it's been there.
It's been there.
Listen. But I get it. I
feel about Tank the way you feel about Shakur. I feel like he hasn't given me his best fight yet. Right. I feel like he hasn't put himself in a position to show me his best.
But we do know, but we do know, right? When it comes to fights, when it comes to boxing, it's that guy's got to bring that out of you.
Right.
The opponent has to bring that out of you. And
Right.
so I'm waiting to see who brings that out of Shakur Stevenson, and on a smaller scale, who brings it out of Tank. Because we kind of saw that with Lamont Roach, right? We kind of seen Lamont Roach take Tank into some deep waters that he hasn't been in
Right.
before. Right?
Right.
So I think that both of those guys have some questions that still need to be answered to me. Even Tank. As much as I'm a Tank advocate and I support Tank, there are still questions about Tank that need to be answered after that Lamont Roach fight.
Right. 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 And what do you do, by the way, if Lamont Roach beats him? Now where do you put Tank? Because he's not the champ anymore.
Well, if look, I think that Tank brings the A+ game in that next fight against Roach, because I think he knows what he's going into. I think he knows what he's going against. I have more confidence in what Tank will do against Lamont Roach, because I've seen. See, here's the difference between him and Shakur. Tank can get you out of there. Tank can get you out of there. Tank can get you out of there. I have yet to see if Shakur can really get you out of there.
All right.
So that for me is going to be the one caveat when I differentiate the two. I see Tank being able to get you out of there, right? So that for me is going to be the thing. But like I said, they both have something to prove. They do. And, ladies and gentlemen, all my Eternals out there, I know that we have ran on a 2-hour show. I didn't even think we'd bang out a 2-hour show. It's been great. I don't want to, we don't want to go on and on. You know what I mean? We want to give you guys some things to come back for. But I'll say this. It's been a great experience doing this podcast. Thank you to my man, Transplant Raider. He's one of my guys eternally. It's been great to have this guy connect with me in the ways that we've connected on these podcasts, and just, our private chats and all of that. You know what I mean? He's helped me see some things that I didn't even see in the sport of boxing. So, all respect due to you. Man, I appreciate you coming on the show. You are a regular on this show. You are eternal guest on this show. You know what I mean? And this is just the beginning, man. We're going to give you guys such great content. And I told you before, even if it's boxing, basketball, football, hip hop, you know what I mean? Like look, trust me. Look, we gonna. It's a lot of things that we're gonna get into, and we're just scratching the surface. So, I don't want to run too long, but I appreciate everybody for coming on to the chat. I appreciate you, Angelo. We'll talk, and we got fights to watch tomorrow, so me and you'll be breaking it down. And I'll see you guys. Probably I'll be doing another show. I might drop a quick one on tomorrow. Might drop a quick show tomorrow. If you guys can tune in, I would appreciate it. You know what I mean? And is there anything you want to say, Angelo, before you get off? Before we get off the chat, the pod.
No, I just want to remind everybody again to please subscribe to Eternal Raider 72. Make sure that you guys are pressing the like buttons. The comments really helps. Again, he's Eternal Raider 72 is just starting out right now, and the more you comment, the more the algorithm of the YouTube kind of helps start to push it out there. And when it comes to just we're gonna do this as a regular talk boxing. The NBA, obviously, we're not gonna get away from that because the finals are here right now. But there's just a lot of news to get into. But I definitely want to educate as many people as I can. I think I told you this, that the problem with everybody right now is that they don't know how amazing boxing looks, and it's because it's not shown on free TV. But once you guys start to watch Eternal Raider 72's channel more and more, you'll start to know why we will say names to you guys like Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois and all these names, Moses Atama, so definitely follow that. And then follow me on Reyes Boxing on IG. I'm trying to get Eternal Raider 72 to open up his IG so that we can
listen. I'm gonna tell everybody right now, I'm a dinosaur when it comes to this. You know what I mean? I'm not a social media guy. I tell everybody I'm 52. I'm from a different era, so I'm just now, dipping my feet into these waters of the social medias and the things like that. But I will be on Instagram. I will have an Instagram account up. You guys will be able to follow me there. For right now, hit me at Eternal Raider 72 on YouTube. You guys can type me in at Eternal Raider 72, and we're gonna talk about it all. And before we get out of here, Cuzzo, I see your comment.
Yeah.
He said, before we head out, tell me our prediction from OKC and Minnesota. And right now, man, I mean, Minnesota. OKC is OKC. I think the gentleman sweep might be coming with OKC. I told you guys on my intro. I told you guys on the intro. I thought Minnesota would win that series. I think I got a reverse course on that one, but I was dead on with Indiana. So right now I'm looking at OKC Indiana, and I think that's the best possible matchup we can get in these finals.
Yeah, no, I got.
What about you?
I don't think it's a gentleman's sweep. I think OKC, unless SGA gets hurt, I think they completely destroy Minnesota. I think that Anthony Edwards is going to put up some major points. He's going to look like how Michael Jordan looked before Scottie Pippen and everybody else got there.
Yeah,
you guys might see Ant-Man put up a 60 on before the Western Conference Finals is over.
But I will say this, Cuzzo. If Julius Randle shows up like he did against Golden State and the Lakers, they can make this a series. I will say that. But the key is Julius Randle has to be Scottie Pippen.
Yes.
Let's just Julius Randle has to be Scottie Pippen. And if we get Julius Randle as Scottie Pippen, then I think we got a series. But if Julius Randle doesn't show up, then I think we're looking at a gentleman's sweep 4-1. And I think it's going to be on to Indiana OKC. And we'll give you our predictions if that comes to fruition. But that's where we at right now, man. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. All my Eternals, love you guys, man. Angelo, you did your thing tonight, man. Appreciate it all, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good night, guys. You guys are the best.
No doubt. Peace.